Longest field goal attempt. Only Sebastian Janikowski would even try this. In 2008, the Raiders lined him up for a 76-yard field goal. Not 60, not 65, but 76. The ball never came close, but that's not the point. It went into the books as the longest official attempt in NFL history. Most kickers do not even get the green light past 65. Janikowski had that kind of cannon leg that made coaches believe in miracles. Nobody expects him to hit from 76 yards in a live game, but the fact that Oakland even tried this tells you how unique Janikowski was. He was part kicker, part showman, and the field became his stage. It's safe to say that this record's not going anywhere. Nowadays, coaches are a little too cautious, and analytics do not support a prayer kick from nearly 80 yards out. But as far as oddball moments go, Janikowski gave us one of the NFL's greatest why not attempts. Most yards lost on a sack, including fumble yardage. Sometimes a sack is just a sack. You lose a few yards, regroup, and move on. But in 2015, Ryan Tannehill found himself in the middle of a play that turned into a comedy of errors. Hit by Preston Smith, Tannehill didn't just get dragged down. He coughed up the ball, scrambled, and by the time the chaos ended, the Dolphins had lost 38 yards in a single play. To put that in perspective, most drives don't even cover 38 yards. One mistake erased the kind of progress that usually takes minutes to build. This isn't the kind of record that you brag about, but it shows how quickly one moment can swing a game from tough to downright embarrassing. Most yards lost on a sack, excluding fumble yardage. Now, getting sacked is part of football, but losing 29 yards in one play is almost unthinkable. In 2011, Tim Tebow was chased deep behind the line, being dragged down, setting the record for the longest sack without a fumble involved. To put it in perspective, most long sacks only lose about 10 to 15 yards. Tebow's stumble was nearly double that, and it topped Kurt Warner's 28-yard sack from 2009. It's a moment that still stands as one of the strangest highlights of Tebow's career. Consecutive games with a penalty. Some players are remembered for touchdowns, some for highlights. Alex Barron is remembered for flags. From week 4 through week 15 of the 2005 season, Barron drew at least one penalty in 9 straight games. Holding, false starts, you name it. If there was a way to stall his offense, he found it. Preach discipline. But this streak became legendary for all the wrong reasons. 9 weeks in a row, the yellow flag followed Barron like a shadow. It got so predictable that fans joked the penalty was part of the game plan. Most penalty and penalty yards in a game. The Raiders have always had a reputation for playing on the edge, but in 2016, they tipped right over it. In a game against the Buccaneers, Oakland racked up 23 penalties for a jaw-dropping 200 yards. That's basically gifting the other team 2 football fields. False starts, holdings, personal fouls, the rest barely had time to catch their breaths. And yet, the Raiders still won that game in overtime, which makes this record even more bizarre. Usually, penalties kill teams. For the Raiders, it just added chaos and somehow didn't stop them. It's a record that feels perfectly on brand for a franchise built on swagger, rebellion, and a little bit of recklessness. Oldest player to score a touchdown. Longevity in the NFL is rare, but Brady turned it into his trademark. On January 1st, 2003, against the Carolina Panthers, the 45-year-old quarterback kept the ball on a sneak and powered across the goal line. At 45 years and 151 days, he became the oldest player ever to score a touchdown. The previous mark belonged to Doug Flutie, who was 42 when he ran one back in 2005. Most players are long retired by their early 40s, but Brady's ability to outlast an entire generation of quarterbacks is what makes this record so remarkable. It's more than just a touchdown. It's proof of how far he pushed the limits of age in pro football. Most consecutive games with a fumble. Kerry Collins had a long NFL career, but one season left him with a record no quarterback wants. In 2001, while playing for the New York Giants, he managed to fumble the ball in 11 straight games every single week from week 6 through week 17. Think about that for a second. For nearly 3 months of football, you could pretty much count on Collins coughing it up at least once. Some were strip sacks, some were botched handoffs, but all of them added up to an unwanted streak that no QB has matched since. It's the kind of record that perfectly sums up how unforgiving the NFL can be. 1 second too slow, one hit you don't see coming, and suddenly you're etched into history for the wrong reasons. Most turnovers by a team in a win. Usually, if a team turns the ball over 3 or 4 times, the game is as good as lost. But in 1967, the Green Bay Packers somehow pulled off a win while coughing it up 8 times. They faced the Chicago Bears and still escaped with a 13-10 victory. Fumbles, interceptions, sloppy mistakes, you name it. Green Bay did it. Yet thanks to a strong defense, and the Bears being equally mistake-prone, The Packers walked away with the strongest of wins. It's one of those records that perfectly captures the chaos of old school football. Imagine sitting in the stands, watching turnover after turnover, convinced that your team is doomed, only to see them pull off a gritty win anyway. The all-time record is 9 turnovers by a team that still managed to win, but this happened before the NFL-AFL merger, but considering the modern era, the benchmark remains with the Green Bay Packers with 8 turnovers. Crazily weird. Most consecutive incompletions in a game. Ryan Leaf's NFL career is remembered for all the wrong reasons, and this record sums it up perfectly. In 1998, the Chargers quarterback threw 14 straight incompletions in a single game. For context, even the most inaccurate quarterbacks usually connect on a few short passes to stop the bleeding, but Leaf just kept missing, over and over as the offense stalled out. The frustration on his teammates' face told the whole story. It's a painful record to hold, but also a snapshot of how rough Leaf's career was. Every throw looked like it had a chance, until it didn't. Longest run by a punter. Punters are supposed to kick, not run. But in 2010, Reggie Hodges of the Cleveland Browns turned into an unlikely track star. On a busted play against the Saints, Hodges took the ball and took off. He sprinted 68 yards before being dragged down, setting the record for the longest run by a punter in NFL history. But why is this really wild? Hodges wasn't exactly known for his speed, yet on that play, he looked like a running back breaking into the open field. For perspective, most punters never run more than a couple yards their entire career. Hodges nearly went the distance. Longest negative run. Most running backs dream of breaking loose for a 20-yard gain. Deshaun Foster did the opposite. In 2007, he was hit in the backfield, tried to escape, and ended up running backwards for a staggering loss of 26 yards. Plays like this almost never happen because running backs are trained to cut their losses and go down. To put that in perspective, that's more yardage lost than most quarterbacks give up on a sack. But here's why this stands out. It's pretty rare to see a running back keep retreating under pressure instead of taking a short loss. Foster's effort turned into one of the strangest bloopers in NFL history. A highlight that no ball carrier ever wants to repeat. Hottest game. Most players worry about rain, snow, or wind. On September 3, 2000, the battle was against the sun itself. The Cowboys and the Eagles kicked off in Texas Stadium at 109 degrees Fahrenheit, the hottest game in NFL history. The heat was so brutal that players were drinking pickle juice on the sidelines just to keep from cramping up. And the reason it stands out is that Philadelphia, a team from up north, handled it better than Dallas, who should have been used to Texas summers. Deuce Staley ran for 201 yards. Donovan McNabb kept the offense rolling, and the Eagles walked out with a 41-14 win. This was not just a game, it was survival in an oven, and the pickle juice game still holds the title for the hottest conditions the NFL has ever seen. Coldest game. If 109 degrees sounds unbearable, try the other extreme. The 1967 NFL Championship, better known as the Ice Bowl, was played at a bone-chilling -13 degrees Fahrenheit in Green Bay. With wind chill, it felt even colder, closer to -40. Players' breath froze in midair, referees' whistles stuck to their lips, and the field turned into a sheet of ice. Even the referees' metal coins for the toss stuck to their hands. Despite the conditions, the Packers edged out the Cowboys in one of the most legendary games ever played. Dallas, interestingly enough, also took part in the hottest game and the coldest game. From one extreme to another, they lived both ends of NFL weather history. Most first downs in a game. Moving the chains is the core of football, and in 2013, the New Orleans Saints took it to a ridiculous level. Against the Dallas Cowboys, Drew Brees and company racked up 40 first downs in a single game, a record that still stands. To put that in perspective, most teams are thrilled if they get around 20 in a game. Doubling that is almost like playing 2 games worth of offense in one night. The Saints had everything clicking: short passes, chunk runs, and deep shots that keep drives alive over and over again. The Cowboys' defense had no answers. By the end of the night, Dallas looked completely gassed, while the Saints kept piling on yardage and points. The final score? 49-17, a blowout that felt more like a video game than real football. The main reason this record is wild is because of how rare it is to even sniff 30 first downs, let alone hit 40. Not just explosive plays, it was consistent, relentless execution on every drive. Fewest first downs in a game. If the Saints showed us the peak of offensive dominance, the 1966 Denver Broncos showed us the complete opposite. In a game against the Houston Oilers, the Broncos failed to record a single first down. Not one. To understand how wild that is, even the worst teams usually stumble into a couple of first downs off penalties or broken plays. But the Broncos' offense was stuck in neutral all afternoon. They finished with 26 total yards, and every possession was basically 3 snaps and a punt. The Oilers' defense suffocated them from start to finish. Denver's quarterback couldn't connect, the run game went nowhere, and the offensive line collapsed under constant pressure. Fans in the stands must have felt like they were watching a scrimmage between varsity and JV. It remains one of the most lopsided offensive showings in league history. A reminder that sometimes a football game can go completely off the rails. Longest down and distance not converted. 3rd and long is tough. 3rd and 15 feels like a miracle. 3rd and 20, almost impossible. But in 2012, Washington faced something that you almost never see. A 3rd and 50. A tangle of penalties pushed them further and further back until the down marker felt like it was in another zip code. By the time the ball was snapped, Washington needed half the length of the field to keep the drive alive. Of course they didn't convert, they barely made it back to the line of scrimmage. The play call was more about survival than hope. Still, the image of an NFL team starting down 50 yards for a first down is as bizarre as it gets. It was less football strategy and more like trying to climb Mount Everest with sneakers on. Longest converted down and distance. On the flip side of impossible downs, we got one that actually worked. In 1999, the Minnesota Vikings were backed up into a hopeless 3rd and 37. Normally, that's a drive killer. Most teams run the ball, punt, and move on. But Leroy Horde had other plans. He took a handoff, cut through a crease, and rumbled for 53 yards. Not only did he erase the impossible distance, he turned it into a highlight run. This wasn't a lucky scramble by a quarterback or a desperation heave downfield. It was a straight-up run play, on a down where the defense expected nothing but a safe call. Horde turned safe into spectacular, converting what might be the longest down and distance in NFL history. Plays like this remind you why football can surprise you in the weirdest of ways. Fewest total yards by a team. Now, football is a game of inches, but sometimes a team goes backwards. In 1979, the Seattle Seahawks put together one of the strangest performances ever seen. By the end of the game, their offense had managed -7 total yards. Not 7 rushing yards, not a rough quarter, the entire game. Every time they gained a little ground, sacks and losses wiped it all away. It wasn't against a juggernaut defense either. It was against the Los Angeles Rams. A good team, but not historically dominant. Seattle just could not move the ball. Quarterback Jim Zorn was swallowed up repeatedly. The run game never got started, and by the 4th quarter, the only thing piling up were the boos from the home crowd. To this day, no team has ever finished with fewer yards in a full NFL game. It's a record that no one wants, and one that the Seahawks have spent decades trying to forget. Shortest player to score a touchdown. Most NFL players tower over the field, but Buddy Young stood at just 5'4". That did not stop him from finding the end zone. Playing in the 1940s and 50s, he was nicknamed the Bronze Bullet for his speed and ability to slip past defenders. In the modern era, Trenton Holliday carried that torch at 5'5". In 2013, he returned a kickoff 105 yards for a touchdown, reminding everyone that size does not decide who crosses the goal line. These moments are proof that the shortest players can still leave the longest impressions. While taller players dominate most highlight reels, Buddy Young and Holliday's touchdown run remains a reminder that even the smallest guy on the field can deliver the biggest play. Tallest player to score a touchdown. If Buddy Young was proof that small can shine, Morris Stroud was the complete opposite. At 6 feet 10 inches, he was the tallest player in NFL history, towering over linemen, receivers, and even his own quarterback. In 1970, Stroud was playing tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, hauled in a 50-yard touchdown pass. Watching him was like seeing a basketball player drop into an NFL game. He could extend so far above defenders that it felt unfair, like a backyard mismatch. His career was relatively short, but that touchdown gave him a spot in history. When the shortest and tallest touchdown scorers are put side by side, Stroud and Holliday show just how wide the NFL spectrum of athletes can be. Shortest overtime. Overtime is supposed to be a test of patience. The crowd settles in, the tension builds, and every play feels like it could swing the game. But sometimes, it's over before anyone even realizes what happened. That was the case in 2015, when the Saints hosted the Cowboys. On the second snap of overtime, Drew Brees dropped back and found CJ Spiller streaking down the sideline. 80 yards later, the game was finished. 13 seconds into overtime, the Cowboys were already walking off the field. It was the fastest ending to an overtime in the regular season, but not the fastest overall. That honor goes to Tim Tebow in the 2012 playoffs. Against the Steelers, he launched an 80-yard touchdown to Demaryius Thomas on the very first play of overtime. 11 seconds, and it was done. 2 games, 2 lightning bolts, and 2 reminders that in football, overtime is not always about the grind. Sometimes, all it takes is one spark. Lowest combined passer rating in a game. The passer rating system is designed so that even a bad quarterback usually puts up something higher than 0. But in 1974, the Buffalo Bills and New York Jets managed to combine for a 0.0 passer rating, which is basically the lowest possible score for passing offense. The two teams threw the ball like it was greased. Between them, they had 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, and completed less than 30% of their passes. Every throw seemed to fall either into the turf or into the arms of the defender. It wasn't a defensive masterpiece so much as a breakdown in basic quarterback play. The only reason why the Bills pulled out a 16-12 win was because of their running game, led by O.J. Simpson, who carried the offense on his back. It was a rare game where fans could almost predict failure every time the quarterback dropped back. To this day, no other matchup has ever bottomed out this badly.